Joshua Plant, and this is week 2 of a multi-part series where we talk specifically on the importance of hydration and today's water system. Today's topic is looking specifically at tap water versus bottled water. Is it worth it? What are some of the challenges we face? And is there a solution out there? So the first thing I want to talk about is something that has risen drastically with respect to the amount of consumption that is happening. This particular issue caught my eye when I first joined Zija about 5 years ago. What I saw is the wonderful nutritional products of Supermix, SmartMix, XM Plus being mixed in everyday bottled water. And it really piqued my interest of what is in that water. Are we really getting the benefit of a more clean, purified water? Is it having huge impacts on our environment? Greenhouse gases and waste in our oceans. And so I started to dive into this more and more. I went down a very deep road looking more and more in the power of purifying water. What is wrong in today's water system? And how we have been completely bamboozled, so to speak, with respect to a lot of the claims that are made by bottled water that are simply not true. And so what I have here today is a variety of different bottled waters that many of us come into contact with on a regular basis. Dasani, Smart Water, Fiji, and a variety of others. What makes these waters better than tap water? Interestingly, when you ask a lot of individuals, why do you drink bottled water? The number one reason isn't convenience, it's actually taste. They say it just tastes a lot better than tap water, which is interesting, since many studies have done where they've done blind taste studies to show that very few people actually can tell the difference between bottled water and tapped water, or tap water. In those cases where they do show a difference, it is so minimal that it's hard to believe that it's actually driving a multi-billion-dollar industry. In fact, many individuals will spend up to $25 a month. That is what the average individual spends that drinks bottled water a month, meaning a household of about 4 individuals is roughly spending $100 a month on bottled water. Now, right after the taste, a lot of people may be feeling they're getting a more premium product. Interesting, several bottled water companies readily admit that it is nothing more than tap water of a local municipality that may be quote-unquote filtered to some extent. Interesting, there's a class action lawsuit out there against one of the largest spring water companies out there where they show that it is nothing more than tap water or claim that it is nothing more than tap water. This lawsuit has just come into action to where people are understanding that they have been bamboozled into thinking that the water they're drinking is something of a greater, more clean sense, when in actuality it's not. In fact, the municipality system, that of the typical waters we find in our taps, is much more regulated. Though that regulation has done very little to improve the water quality over the decades, we at least know what those impurities are that we're drinking. For example, we know what the parts per million lead are in our local water system, and many of us can find those for ourselves by simply going to the government website. Additionally, we know, at least, that many of the prescription drugs that are found out there, the water systems can't purify. The challenge is when we drink bottled water, we assume we're getting a more clean product, when in actuality, the inverse may be true. Hazardous chemicals are known to be leaking in from the plastics. In addition to that, it is not nearly as regulated. In fact, many organizations regulate it to just 10 parts per million of toxic components. Just to put it into perspective, 10 parts per million lead, for example, is allowed in many bottled waters, where after drinking 2 liters, you're getting roughly 20 micrograms of lead. This has been shown in many cases to retard the learning capabilities of children. Now, what we need to do is understand how we can improve the quality of water and what bottled water can do. So the first thing I want to talk a little bit about is the challenges of the different types of bottled water. One thing is it's a huge distraction to our environment. In fact, I think it is approximately 38 million tons of plastic is manufactured each year just for bottled water. And we may think that an overwhelming of that is recycled, but less than 30% is thought to be recycled. This ultimately finds its way of being burned, releasing toxic chemicals into the air, such as dioxin, or ultimately finds its way into our oceans and streams, polluting many of our beautiful ecosystems. Additionally, when we look at the amount of energy that goes into making tap water versus or bottled water versus tap water, it's roughly 2,000 times less energy efficient of making bottled water. That doesn't even take into account the local shipping of that bottled water. This is having an impact of approximately 80 million barrels of oil, additional oil being consumed for the making of that plastic. Now, additionally, when we look at this, we look at bottled water as a way of getting clean access or clean water to different areas. Not to highlight any particular water company out there, but we know from certain areas, for example, Fiji, about or less than half of the people actually have access to clean water. Interestingly, the entire demand that we are putting on our ecosystem by shipping this quote-unquote clean water from Fiji to the U.S. is overwhelming. What we need to do is understand how can we get clean water, legitimately clean water, that is different from the tap, where it's removing the hazardous pharmaceuticals that are in it. How can we find a solution to where neither tap nor bottled water is delivering that solution? And I'm going to leave that answer for next week on the Dr. Plant Facts and Findings call. So, in short, is bottled water better than tap? No, it's not. Is tap the solution? Unfortunately, that's not the solution either. And so I look forward to working with you next week as we learn at what are some potential solutions of finding clean water.